Hello, traveler. Today we find ourselves in a pretty exciting part of the path. We find ourselves at the precipice, coming out of a very, very dark forest, very beautiful, very dark old forest, full of little spirits running around the trees and scurrying about in the different winds, shifting in kind of a whole bunch of different directions you're not really familiar still. It feels like they're all kind of swirling together in different directions, all kind of building up upon each other. And it's an overwhelming excitement, almost, if you will. You can feel the ecstatic, the electricity in the air as you look up and you see the summit of this mountain looking in front of you. The fog still glistening in the morning sunlight, but still ever present there. And you find that, like, in the sense of this journey, that you are truly in a place of some old ass motherfuckers is the best way to say it. It's some ancient wisdom in there in one way, shape, or form, or another, but it's its own thing, right? It's not something that has it's been interpreted in many different directions. It's the places that you've come to for different reasons. You've heard about it. You've always known that this monument was out there on the journey, on the path, and these different precipices to get to. But it's a little weird to still see it in person, right? You're like, oh shit, it's actually there. It's actually a thing happening. So, with that though, yeah, exactly. But luckily, as always, we take a big breath in and we're reminded, because we don't act to share in these moments together. We get to share in these journeys with people around us together. So we take a big breath in and we looked over and we see a beautiful color looking right back at us. And I am joined today with the absolutely wonderful, the absolutely fantastic, and just the most precious of colors. Truly, truly the most precious of colors. And if you would, before we give away who this wonderful person is, I believe there's a little reading prepared that if you would like to go ahead.
The darkness of the day does not bring with it a cloud of foreboding that seems to drown those that follow the rays of the sun. It is home. It is a blanket of comfort, heavy with rain, and a casting of gray that weaves itself through trees much older than the shimmering city. Trees that remember different lands riddled with hills that gave way to the forcing hand of mankind. They mourn their thirst brought on through survival of their cohabitants. They celebrate life while holding
Hmm.
space for love and loss. This place is life enduring.
Samantha, it is a pleasure to have you here.
It is an honor to be here. Oh my gosh.
It is, as always, your readings. And so, for anyone who doesn't know, Sam is a wonderful, wonderful order of words. And my meditations are always half an attempt to try to illustrate the points of the words that and the poems that you post on a regular basis. So, as always, it was a pleasure to hear your little descriptions. And it's, again, so excited to have you here and so excited to be taking this next step in this journey here with you.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Tal. And when you were doing your meditation, by the way, like it immediately brought me back to where I was recording those videos that I sent you.
Yeah.
Like I was just transported back to my little walk.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking out right here on my desktop, right? And one of them is the background from Princess Mononoke.
Oh my gosh.
And I obviously, as we know about the book that we'll be talking about, is the importance of the mountain, obviously, and everything like that. Is so there, and to be looking out in my own view of what I view as a idealistic kind of mountain range, really kind of, it was a very natural feeling to it, right, with it all. So
The
um,
synchronicities.
we always have our fun with it in our own little synchronicities, right? It is
Yes.
definitely fun to see those little connection points that keep uniting us together. So.
Oh my God,
Um,
absolutely.
but I would think it would be fun if you actually we're almost 5 minutes into this now, and we still haven't talked about what the heck we're doing here. So, would you like to give
Oh
the
my
big
God.
spoiler out and talk to the wonderful traveler what we're doing here?
Well, my travelers, we are about to dive onto a spiritual plane through the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and we are going to learn about these life embracing rituals and experiences. And I cannot wait. I kind of dove in, tall nose, but I dove in a little bit, and I like to think that I'm kind of an anthropologist in the future, you know? So I love learning about things as I go, and I read the introduction to this, and I wrote down a little bit what I didn't know before I jumped into the intro. So what did you know before doing any kind of research? Like what was your understanding?
So I come from, me in two different places. One, I come from the occult way of me wanting to be a wannabe, occult hipster in our society, right? But then I also know it from like legitimately like my experience within like being in my Buddhist practice, right? Even though I wouldn't say like any subscribe to one individual school of Buddhism, right? I know of this text is just because it's one of the first texts that has been it was translated, right? So like in literally through religious studies, right? In my my what was that word? My bachelor's. There we go. My bachelor's. I literally, this is one of the texts I talked about, right? So I had an anthropological understanding of like what it comes from, right? So this is a found text, right? It's what it means. It was basically, it wasn't written by, it was claimed to be ordered from in the past, right? And then it was found at a later date, similar to like the Dead Sea Scrolls, something like that, right? Then off of that, I knew that it was with like a lot of Tibetan stuff, it was found text, right? I also knew that it had a lot of occult mysticism in it because it was one of the things that was translated first when it was on that first wave of literally like Zen Buddhism. A lot of things from Zen Buddhism got translated in the early 1920s as well. So, which is really a lot of our cultural filters. But because of a lot of those cultural filters that happened, a lot of those translations were just not accurate. So, and I know that I cheated a little bit. I did do the little bit of research I did find out was that Timothy Leary do you know who that is? Timothy Leary?
I think so, yeah.
The Harvard prison experiments, right?
Yes,
exactly,
yes.
right? Yeah, exactly. So I did know that there was a connection to him and all this because of the whole literally MK Ultra stuff and like the psychedelic stuff and everything like that. So like he talks about like this stuff and everything like that. So, and it's used, but it's all based off of like, again, like the wrong translations that were used, and then it was used for like literally spooky science, like scary bad science, right?
So it turns into a level of abuse that it never should be.
Exactly, right? So it's like these fundamental things, right? So it's this thing that like, so it's very hard for me because first of me, I don't like found texts. I fundamentally don't agree with them as a religious principle in my own personal things. It's why I stay away from a lot of different schools of religious thought and everything like that. But it's also something that has like it is a foundational piece in like how karma is viewed and everything like that in the Tibetan school. And I fucking love the Tibetan school because it's the only one it's one of the very few schools that actually allowed for woman enlightenment and sex. So, and I'm all about both of those things in life.
Oh my god, that's beautiful. That's poetic right there.
I do believe, if I remember correctly, the original story goes something like this. It's but for the Tibetan, for this the lady who, what happened was the knowledge was given and a princess like reached enlightenment or whatever, right? And then she's the one that hid the text to later be found. So it talks about like a woman reaching enlightenment is where these texts come from, right? So according to like the story, I believe at least something like that. Like that's like my understanding of it at least. So, and then it basically gets into like Dante's Inferno is my understanding of it, which is a horrible description of it because it's not what it is at all.
No, but it's also
like literally going through the different planes of existence and encountering different gods, and like literally like this is something that's supposed to be like
14 gods.
Yeah, just like an insane so literally talking about all those different the cosmic realities and like that. And I know that this is something, because it's an old text and it's Buddhist, it's something that's supposed to be like sung, like, so we'll be to be reading it aloud in this, I think is very, very fitting for what we'll be trying to do here.
It's very connecting.
Yeah, so I mean that's at least the like I said, I cheated a little bit right there, and I talked about, like I said, I think the research that like I actually pulled from was like knowing that it was like from the 13th century is like I pulled from in my research on it, but like from my basic understanding of it beforehand was basically that it's something that was abused in both occult mysticism, it was mistranslated, it was used poorly in pop culture and psychedelics, psychedelic research, but at the same time I have a translation sitting in here from like the Dalai Lama talking about how valuable it is and like the accuracy of it, right? And that's the value in that stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is still an incredibly important and quite literally sacred document
Yes.
to a lot of different people on a daily basis, right? And it's like, and so I'm very excited to be able to, and something that like I'm genuinely interested in, right? And as I'm
Yeah.
continuing to explore my own spiritual paths and everything like that, I'm always interested in understanding what some other wisdom perception is the old ones are, right? So to be able to
Yes.
have that and to be able to read through it is exciting.
It is so very exciting. And I want to take a moment to appreciate that we're on this spiritual journey together, because that is genuinely something that my therapist and I talk about
Yeah.
every time I see her, is like, I'm on this spiritual journey and I don't know where to go or how to get there. And so we've kind of put like a very loose label around the kind of journey that I'm on right now. And the very loose label is like a shamanistic path, right? Because I'm always about healing. I feel very connected to being outside and,
Yeah.
being that person who can bring light into darkness. And so going into like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, I didn't know much about it. Like, I knew it was a found text. I knew that it holds very sacred rites and like
Mm-hmm.
meanings and very impactful, powerful things. And I didn't know much about like the background of it. The whole process, I learned about how it came from, how it was translated, was very fascinating to me, that I just learned about. And I thought that it was so cool that the guy Evans Wentz, I don't remember his first name, W.Y.
Yeah, the
Evans
original
Wentz,
one and the one who translated in
the
the
translator.
1920s. Yeah.
Yes, he translated it in the 1920s. So prior to going on his spiritual journey through the Tibetan Book of the Dead with the Lama, he actually studied fairy folklore in
Mm-hmm.
like Wales and Scotland. And I had no idea. And I was like, that's so freaking cool.
No, it's fun for you to have like those, like you said, like those little bit of synchronicities where like as you
Yeah.
continue to move forward in like these individual journeys and everything like that, you have like these inner points of connective where it does have like that fairy folklore. And I think that like one of the things that's really important coming into this is like, how those um I think that's important to recognize, right? That it's important to recognize how there's these individual things that different cultures like talk about points wise that have like these interconnected things, like those points, right? You're talking about like where it's like, so you can have your own personal resonance and everything like that, but there's still
Yeah.
like their own individual expressions within these different cultures, right?
Right.
So like, and I think that's really like a lot of the individual goal here is to be able to figure out like what your meaning with it is like that, and like to be able to celebrate those individual points of connection of like have like the celebrations of like this person being into fairy folklore and Welsh traditions and everything like that too, while still understanding like
Yes.
what these texts are actually saying and it is and like what it means to be and everything like that.
And also, one thing that like has been just heavy on my like soul is like how this creates beauty in death, beauty in loss. It creates something entirely new for the people who get to experience these in moments, but also like us as we get to experience our read through.
Yeah, I think that's actually something that's really important is that this text is literally supposed to be spoken to the dead.
Yeah.
So like literally it is that like I feel like it is to like whatever that interconnectiveness and that interlinkingness of it, like that it is not just like celebrating the dead, but literally to be like that passage and right into the next, like
Yeah.
whatever that next stage is. So I'm really interested in that aspect of it, right? Where
Oh,
it
me
isn't just like
too.
normalizing death, but it's literally like, no, I'm supposed to be like, as I read this and like go through these prayers and everything like that, I'm supposed to be talking to like the dead spirits that are coming through and everything like that. And I just think that's cool as fuck, right?
It's
um
so cool. Like,
yeah,
let me hold your hand and help guide you through this.
which is something that you see in like a lot of different religions, right? You see that very much
Mhm.
so. Again, think of like in the synchronicity with the intentional synchronicity that was created for us, right? With all the different labelings of the Tibetan Book of the Dead is it's called that in the West because it's a nod at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I do find it but the interconnective in my brain right there, right? is saying, because they're the other culture I think of that really does have that same, like, talks to the dead in a lot of different ways, especially when you get into Thoth, and the judgments and stuff like that, right? That you literally guide, and it's going through the different planes and stuff like that. So it is definitely interesting, like how I love in, I want to say typically in non-Abrahamic faiths, you really see this exploration of like you can still not only have like this living connection to the dead, but you have like, you were literally like, no, let me help you. Like
Yes,
it's like,
yes.
it's like, no, I can still help you, like, kind of thing, right?
Please
So
just let me help you.
yeah, I really that it's something that really like that, whatever that in my mind, that triggers the mind juices right there. So
it gets it flowing.
yeah, I know. So but other than that, what do you think that you're most excited about before we actually get into this?
I am really excited to learn about the different deities. So if you don't know, if as these rites are being performed over a dead body, it is performed over the span of 14 days, right? The first 7 is basically like, for lack of better words, like trial and tribulations, again, towards or with the more positive, good deities. And if you are inclined and you hear them and you recognize them, then you are able to pass on with them. And then for day 8 to 14, it's the polar opposite of more negative deities. And if you feel more inclined towards them, then you pass on through them. But if you don't hear any or feel any sense of connection between either one of them, you basically pass on into your next life. And I'm very excited to dive into these deities and what they represent and what they bring to life and death.
Yes. No, and it's just a process, right?
Yes.
It's just a part of the pattern, right? Or the cycle, or whatever you want to call it. So
what are you most excited about?
I love God talk. I love God talk. I love learning about gods.
Too.
I love,
it's
like,
so
biblically accurate angels is one of my favorite things, dude.
They're so cool.
That's why I like half my mandalas that I make with all my doodles and shit like that, right? Is just trying to make biblically accurate angels, basically.
Oh my god. It's funny because I was thinking about that the other day.
Yeah, no.
I was wondering, I was like, I wonder if Tal's making these kind of like biblical angels.
Yeah. No, it's literally just, they're fun. They're fun like that. So I love the actual magic of it, but I think what I'm really most literally just to read.
Oh gosh, yes, and to read with you.
Yeah, like to literally to read something that like is meant to be allowed, and to like have someone who is like in it with me, to like I can be accountable to, like in like a way that's like without expectation though.
Yes.
And like it is a process that like I think I'm overall excited for very much. But like just to literally understand a text that's been used, that's been hijacked culturally in so many different ways, and to like actually form my own understanding of it is very exciting, right? And just to like understand of like what is literally the words on these pages meaning, right? It's like there's only a few books I've actually truly read, right? I've read a lot. I think I've read a lot of books, but like comparatively to like people like you and like Danny and like all these other people, like fuck, I haven't read a lot. I really haven't. So like but like I think there's a few books in my head that I know I've like read from like chapter to like from book to cover, like including every word on those pages, right? For me in my life, it is like The Alchemist and like the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff like that, right? So like there's like some very like there's some documents like I truly like, no, I've read it, and this was one of those books that I've always wanted to be on that for me. So to be able to start that journey and be like, no, I'm actually like, because Tegan, one of my life partners, they bought me this book like 3 years ago, after because I've talked about this book for a long time, right? And so they bought this book for me. Yeah, exactly. They knew.
Yeah,
and So like to be able to like, actually like get to a point where I can like actually finally in like actually reading it, and it's not just sitting on the bookshelf, right? I'm just so
Yeah.
excited about that. So
I'm so excited that you got to pull it off the shelf
yeah, no.
and
So
crack it open.
and it only took us
Give it a
20
big
minutes of
whiff.
recording to actually get to a point where we can start actually talking about it. Isn't that exciting?
Honestly. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it doesn't help that this is like the first time that you and I have like talked
I know,
in a very
I know.
long time.
I know. It's a little bit of catching up to it. Just
Yeah.
to see your face and your colors in
Oh
motion
my
again is wonderful.
gosh.
So
I'm so excited.
of course. So I think because I know we're reading from two different versions here right now.
Yes.
I think, like I said, you're reading. It's actually going to be really interesting to see the difference in of ours because if you're pulling from the 1927 version, if that was him, it's going to be it should be quite a bit different than mine actually in some different ways. So it'll be very interesting to see those differences.
I agree. I'm excited. It'll be really fun to like have that compare and contrast of
Yes.
any differences.
So, first thing we're do is I'm going to go ahead and read the introduction and my version from His Holiness, the whatever number that is, Dalai Lama. He is currently still living. Just everyone is, you can actually still, you can, yeah. He's still currently doing. He's talked a lot about what his next reincarnation might be too. So there, if you want some hot Buddhist tea, learn about the Dalai Lama's speculative next reincarnation cycle.
Ooh, spicy.
It actually is pretty spicy.
Ooh.
There are political implications behind that one.
Okay, so I'm gonna go look into that later.
Yeah. But I'm gonna go ahead and start. We'll just go ahead and actually start reading this bad boy. Okay, so the question of whether or not there exists a continuity of consciousness after death has been an important aspect of philosophical reflection and debate from ancient Indian times to the present. When considering these matters from a Buddhist point of view, however, we have to bear in mind that we are understanding of the nature of continuity and consciousness and the understanding of the nature of the I or self are closely interlinked. Therefore, let us first look into what can be said to constitute a person. According to Buddhist classical literature, a person can be seen as possessing 5 interrelated aggregates, technically known as 5 psychophysical aggregates. These are the aggregate of consciousness, the aggregate of form, which includes our physical body and senses, the aggregate of feeling, the aggregate of discrimination, the aggregate of motivational tendencies. That is to say, there is our body, the physical world, and our 5 senses, and there are various processes of mental activity, our motivational tendencies, our labeling, and of discrimination between objects, our feelings, the underlying awareness or consciousness. Among the ancient schools of thought, which accepted the notion of continuing of consciousness, there were several non-Buddhist philosophical schools which regarded the entity, the I, or self, which migrated from existence to existence as being unitary and permanent. They also suggested that this self was autonomous in its relationship to the psychophysical components that constitute a person. In other words, they believed or positioned that there is an essence or soul of the person which exists independent from the body and the mind of the person. Okay, so initial thoughts right there before we jump into what the Buddhist thought is on that.
Ooh. I love the idea and thought and belief behind how your soul is just literally separate from your physical body, and your physical body is just like its conduit for the moment.
Yeah, a vessel, right?
Yeah, the vessel. Yeah. That's a better word.
Yeah. I really enjoy the and this is something that I really struggle with in when I actually took some Buddhist classes back in my undergrad. And really trying to understand and this is a very, like you said, like it said in the second paragraph, when it's talking about the aggregates that makes up a person, right? Now,
Yeah.
I think he does a much better job when he's just literally saying it's talking about literally saying the various processes of our mental activity and stuff like that. But those things are very fundamental and like active, like things that I very much like try to think about. Is just like how literally are those different aggregates like interact with each other, like literally the stored consciousness that you have interacting in those mental tendencies, right? And then how
Right.
you label and discriminate things in your head, right?
Yeah.
Like how we label things for ourselves and other people, right? So like that's the biggest thing, that is the thing I try to take from Buddhism or more than anything else, right? Is that things are not putting things in a box, because that's all we do as humans is put things in boxes to understand things. And like that, so that
Yeah.
like my entire personal journey and understanding of like the entire Buddhist principle and fundamentally is try not to put things in box.
I
Is
love
this,
that.
yeah, don't put
Oh
things
my
in box,
god.
let things just be.
Yeah.
Just let the
Just
flow, yeah.
allow the flow to go through.
So that is, yeah, so I
uh,
very much, that is what my mind gets wrapped around. Okay,
I really enjoy that.
any other thoughts real quick, or I will continue a little bit farther here.
Now take it away.
All right, so continuing on, however, Buddhist philosophy does not accept the existence of such an independent autonomous entity. In the Buddhist view, the self or the person is understood in terms of a dynamic, interdependent relationship of both mental and physical attributes. That is to say that the psychophysical components, which constitute a person. In other words, our sense of self can, upon examination, be seen as a complex flow of mental, physical events clustered in clearly identifiable patterns, including our physical features, instincts, emotions, and attitudes, etc. Continuing through time, further according to, I'm going to try to
Ooh,
pronounce this.
good luck.
Mm, Prasangika, Prasangika Mad, Madhyamaka. Oh, that is. I apologize to whatever native Sanskrit speaker still lives. Philosophy. Um, let's see here, which has become the prevailing psychological view of Tibetan Buddhism today. The sense of self is simply a mental construct, a mere label given to the cluster of dependently arising mental and physical events in dependence on their continuity. Now, when we look at this interdependence of mental and physical constituents from a perspective of the highest yoga tantra, there are two concepts of a person. One is this temporary person or self. That is, we exist at the moment, and this is labeled on the basis of coarse or gross physical body and conditioned mind, and at the same time, there is a subtle person or self is designated in dependence on the subtle body and subtle mind. The subtle body and the subtle mind are seen as single entities that have two facets. The aspect which has the qualitative of awareness, which can reflect and has the power of cognition, is the subtle mind. Simultaneously there is its energy, the force that activates the mind towards its object. This is the subtle body or subtle wind. These two interchangeably conjoined qualities are regarded in the highest yoga tantra as the ultimate nature of a person and are identified in as Buddha nature, the essential or the actual nature of mind. Now, two big points that I have from that real quick, and then please go
Okay.
ahead. The first one is, this is something that I actually do believe in first and foremost, and this is kind of how I view the soul, if you will, is from this Buddhist perspective, that it is just this ever evolving thing in this state of flux and this flow, and it is not dependent on just myself or some independent, indomitable thing, but is this ever evolving nature of this whatever, right? But at the same time, right, it is that the last thing and the second paragraph right there talks about the inexplicable joint qualities in regardless in the highest yoga tantra as the ultimate nature of a person, as identified as Buddha nature. How I understand that is basically, it doesn't matter we all all stardust. We all have the same latent agency potential. We're all capable of being that same agent factors of change. I am capable of both being that great leader of history and also being a nobody. I'm also capable of being literally a dust mite or just some cosmic particle of energy, right? It's that same latent energy potential is the same as me and the Buddha, right? So those are two very big components of like how I do personally view like the actual self and like everything like that. And the self isn't anything different than the ego. They're just two different facets of things that we have labeled. Whatever, I don't know if I personally believe if there is an indomitable soul. I do believe I think it is more that it is like I said with the Buddhism thing of the ever evolving thing. But I do think that basically it's like a light touching a light on a candle, right? One candle lights another candle from life to life and whatever that regards. But I do think that you can be still the same weird fucking life to life, right? I do think that the actions, whether it be the store karma or whatever, right, from one life goes into the next one and still retains some semblance of that. So I think that you can make your own flavors kind of within this ever evolving kind of journey, right? So what were your thoughts on all that?
I started to go down like the mental acceptance almost, because it's like I'm learning so much about myself. Like, okay, so this book for me right now is like very heavily tied in with like my grief process. And it's that acknowledgement that, like you said, we're all just like stardust, right?
Yeah.
And I've always found that to be so beautiful. And so when it's talking about like the subtle mind and the subtle body or wind and like the mental constructs that you kind of build around yourself, but also others, like it goes back to that box, like don't put everything into a box. And so that's kind of where I was like thinking through and really wishing that we had the same like books so I could like make notes in my book on the margins of like, oh shit, this jumped out, this is what I thought.
Well, don't worry, this is our first go ahead and this is our thing. That's a remedy we can easily remedy ourselves. So
so I just wrote down words and
perfect. That's exactly what we need for this moment right here right now. That's all we need. So
yes.
No, I do definitely think that it's a lot. I think that when again in regards to with the grieving process, right, especially when it's talking about the different natures of the like the soul, right, quite literally right there, it's going to be very interesting like as we get through this journey about how that relates to you, about how like I think this challenges you in certain ways, right? I think it's going to be a very, very, very interesting. So,
and there were definitely some key words in there that like I would hear and immediately think, wow, this is going to challenge me in ways that like I've never been truly challenged before, and I am embracing it.
There's a reason why I'm not a Buddhist. I don't agree with like a lot of ultimately like a lot of these tenets, right? I agree with a lot of the way of the teachings, though at the same time too, right? There's a lot that I do pull from, but it's the same thing. Like I'm not a practicing Jew though too, but I still don't what is the word? I still don't eat or whatever that is. I still fast for Yom Kippur. Right. And I still, try to touch my mezuzah on every time I enter my my house and everything like that. But I'm still not a practicing Jew, and I don't go to Sabbath temple everything like that.
It's what you connect with, and it's what you want to bring into the world. And I think like that is the most beautiful thing about a spiritual journey. And like you find what really resonates with you throughout different different religious practices and different spiritual practices. And I think that's so beautiful that we live in a world where that is possible.
Well, and exactly, and doing it in a way that's like still respecting it as the religious tradition it is, right? Like, and that's why like I wanted to make sure we read from the Dalai Lama himself, as the introduction first, because this is literally his religion. So like I think that's
it's his life.
It's literally right. So just as like we're trying on our spiritual journey and everything like that, this right now, it's the same for you and all that. So,
absolutely.
I think that's very exciting. So let's go ahead then, because I think you're right. I think we should get to a point where we are both talking at this point. So let's go ahead and let's just skip to wherever in your book is the beginning.
So for me, the beginning after like the introduction is it starts with book 1, the Chakai Bardo and the oh god, I gotta go back and remember how to pronounce this. Oh my gosh, where's the pronunciation? I knew I should have highlighted it.
Oh, trust me. There's, like I said, this might get a little dicey with some of the pronunciations of some of these words. I do not speak Sanskrit in by any means.
Oh god, honestly, but we're trying. Okay. So this is my assumption because it's the chi with the O, the CHO with the 2 dots above it, and like
yeah. Fun things that English does not normally do.
Exactly, but Bardo Thodol is pronounced Thosgrol, and it's THO with the 2 dots over it. So I'm like assuming it's Chosniad Bardo.
That is better than I would ever give it. So,
so that's where I start with mine. Do you have? I'm assuming you have that set up in your book too.
Let's see here. Okay, so I think my beginning starts with the common preliminary practice.
Okay. Very cool.
Let's see here. I am just a little... Oh, okay. I see how... No, this is just how mine's just set up a little bit differently there. Sorry, this makes for great over the microphone content, but no.
I know, right?
Go ahead and just start reading. Go ahead, and I'll follow along with you for a little bit here.
Cool. So the book 1, the Chakai Bardo and the Chosniad Bardo, is where this starts out with. And there's like a couple of, I want to say poems. There's a couple of pieces of quick little writings that I really loved, that I wanted to read. And this one is called Death's Messenger. And this is how it goes. It's by Angotara Kaya.
Okay.
Death's Messenger. All they who thought thoughtless. Wait, nope. That was bad. Okay. All they who thoughtless are, nor heed what time death's messengers appear, must long the pangs of suffering feel in some base body habiting. But all those good and holy men, what time they see death's messengers, behave not thoughtless, but give heed to what the noble doctrine says, and in attachment frightened see of birth and death the fertile source, and from attachment free themselves, thus birth and death extinguishing. Secure and happy ones are they, released from all this fleeting show, exempted from all sin and fear, all misery have they overcome. And that's how this opens up. And I thought that was beautiful.
No, I think that it's definitely I like that I liked the word of it, the use of misery, right? I really definitely enjoyed the use of misery right there. Give me 1 second real quick.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that with the different translations, I don't think that it's going to serve a lot of purpose to go ahead, because I think they are just a little bit that different right now.
Yeah.
So I think I want to go ahead then at this point, start with your translation and just read the beginning a little bit more into it.
Okay.
And then for when we get into the next cycle around, we can really figure out how to go into it. But let's go ahead. I want you to read the first page of yours, and then I'll read the first page of mine, and we'll compare and contrast the differents.
Yeah.
From book 1.
So it's really interesting because it does book 1, and then it says part 1. Okay, I see. Book 1, part 1.
Mm-hmm.
LOL. So should I just start from book 1, or jump to part 1?
Go ahead and jump to part 1. Yeah, let's just go from there.
Okay, cool. That's actually where I stopped reading the other night.
Perfect.
So, part 1 is the Bardo of the Moments of Death.
Okay.
So this says instructions on the symptoms of death or the first stage of the Chakai Bardo, the primary clear light, seen at the moment of death. So, mind you, you're genuinely sitting face to face with a dead body while this is being performed. The first, the setting face to face with the clear light during the intermediate state of the moment of death is here. Some there may be who have listened much to religious instruction, yet not recognized, and some who, though recognizing, are nevertheless weak in familiarity. But all classes of individuals who have received the practical teaching guides will, if this be applied to them, be set face to face with the fundamental clear light, and without any intermediate state. They will obtain the unborn Dharmakaya by the great perpendicular path. The manner of application is: it is best if the guru from whom the deceased received guiding instructions can be had. But if the guru cannot be obtained, then a brother of the faith, or if the latter is also unobtainable, then a learned man of the same faith. Or, should all these be unobtainable, then a person who can read correctly and distinctly ought to read this many times over. Thereby the deceased will be put in mind of what he had previously heard of the setting face to face, and will at once come to recognize the fundamental light and undoubtedly obtain liberation. So I want to take a moment to appreciate that this goes far beyond just, obviously it's a very symbolic thing to have with your guru, but I think it's really beautiful that it extends the invitation to a brother of the faith, somebody who, a learned man of the same faith, or somebody who can just read and, recognize that, what this is. I think that's really cool and very beautiful.
No, I think that I like that too. I very much think that. Oh, I think it's something that calls out to a lot of us, right? Is that archetype right there of like having that fellow person of like to have that common language with and to be taught by, right?
Right.
And to have someone that is to be able to be on this journey with and take those steps with through and be able to be like, no, hey, let's actually like learn this together in this different way, like what we're trying to do one ways together right now, but literally like I like it in the context of like, hey, there's a dead body right there, and we're trying to have this process this through death, and let's talk about like literally then the next, but that literally the soul like to the next world. So
yes, it's so cool.
I do like that a lot. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read my first page then and see what because it is completely different from where you're at. So
my gosh, I'm excited! I love this.
This will be fun. All right, so there's a little introduction here before we get into what I believe is the actual first kind of prayer. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to read the introduction and then I'm going to read the prayer through. The prayer is about a page and a half here, so bear with me on any translation issues here. So this might be a little lengthy here, so we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
So here's a little preface. Herein is the contained Herein is the contained national liberation of the nature of mind. The 4-session yoga, which is a spiritual practice of the vehicle of indestructible reality, the way of the secret mantras. An extract from the peaceful and wrathful deities, a profound sacred teaching, natural liberation through enlightened intention. It would be excellent if one were to train one's mental continuum according to the following preliminary practices, which are based on the peaceful and wrathful deities, a profound sacred teaching entitled Natural Liberation. I don't know why I struggle with that word so much. Through the recognition of enlightenment intentions. So I do believe that peaceful and wrathful deities, I do believe that is like the literal title of like the book, like, or like it would be like the Veda essentially equivalent.
Yeah.
So I believe that's the actual thing. And this is like the actual individual text within it right there. So I believe that it's all italicized. So my understanding of how books work, that means that's the title.
Yes, my understanding too.
All right, so I believe the first prayer goes as follows then. So, common preliminary practice. O lass, fortunate child of Buddha nature, do not be oppressed by the forces of ignorance and delusion. but rise up now with resolve and courage. Entranced by ignorance, from beginningless time until now, you have had more than enough time to sleep. So do not slumber any longer, but strive after virtue with body, speech, and mind. Are you oblivious to the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death? There is no guarantee that you will survive even past this very day. The time has come for you to develop prevalence in your practice. For at this singular opportunity, you could attain the everlasting bliss of nirvana. So now is certainly not the time to sit idly. But starting with the reflections on death, you should bring your practice to completion. The moments of our life are not expandable, and the possible circumstances of death are beyond imagination. If you do not achieve an undaunted, confident security now, what point is there in you being alive, O living creature? All phenomena are ultimately selfless, empty, and free from conceptual elaboration. Editor note real quick. Emptiness is a completely different concept in Buddhism thought than what any Western thought is, so that's something I want to talk about later.
Okay.
In the dynamics, they reassemble an illusion, mirage, dream, or reflected image. A celeste city, an echo, a reflection of the moon in the water. A bubble, an optical illusion, or an intangible emulation. You should know that all things of cyclical existence and nirvana, according in nature with all these 10 similes of illusionary phenomena. All phenomena are naturally uncreated. They neither abide nor cease, neither come nor go. They are without objective reference, singless, infallible, and free from thought. The time has come for this truth to be realized. Homage to spiritual teachers. Homage to the meditational deities. Homage to the dakinis. I don't know what a dakini is. Alas, how needing of compassion are those living beings tortured by their past actions, who are drowning in this deep chasm of engulfing ocean in their past actions. Such is the nature of fluctuating cyclic existence. Grant your blessings so that this ocean of sufferings may run dry. How needing of compassion are those who are skillless, those who are tortured by ignorance and past actions, those who indulge in actions conductive to suffering, even though they desire happiness. Grant your blessings so that obscription of dissonant mental states and past actions may be purified. How needing of compassion are the ignorant and the deluded, bound in the confining dungeon of egotistical attachment and the subject-object dichotomy, who, like wild game, are trapped in this snare time after time. Grant your blessing so that the cyclic existence may be stirred to its depths. Into needing the compassion are those beings who endlessly revolve in the cycle of existence, as if circling perpetually on the rim of a water wheel in this six-dimensional city of imprisonment past actions. Grant your blessings so that the womb entrances to the 6 classes of existence may be barred. 6 classes of existence may be barred. So apparently there's 6 classes of existence. That is good.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was just about to try to find this page that talks about the 6 class of existence.
Oh, okay, so you okay, cool.
I just found it.
Good to know.
Okay.
All right, almost done here.
Yeah, you're good.
We who are fearless and hard-hearted, despite having seen so many suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death, are wasting our human lives endowed with freedom and opportunity on the paths of distraction. Grant your blessings so that we may continuously remember impermanence and death. Since we do not recognize that impermanent things are unreliable, still, even now we remain attached and clinging to the cycle of existence. Wishing for happiness, we pass our human lives in suffering. Grant your blessings so that attachment to cyclic existence may be reversed. Our implement environment will be destroyed by fire and water. The implement sentient beings within it will endure the severing of body and mind. The seasons of the year, summer, winter, autumn, and spring themselves exemplify impermanence. Grant your blessings so that disillusionment which conditioned existence may arise from the depths of our hearts. Last year, this year, the waxing and the waning of the moons, the days, the nights, the indivisible time moments that are all impermanent. If we reflect carefully, we too are faced with death. Grant your blessings so we become resolute in our practice. Though this body endowed with freedom and opportunity is extremely hard to find, when the Lord of Death approaches in the semblance of disease, how needing of compassion are those bereft of the sacred teachings, return empty-handed from this life. Grant your blessings so that any recognition of urgency may grow in our minds. Alas, O precious jewel, embodiment of compassion, since you, the conqueror, are endowed with a loving heart, grant your blessings so that we and the six classes of beings may be liberated right now from the suffering of cyclic existence.
Oh man, what an experience.
So, yeah, I guess that is apparently the first prayer.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I looked up what a dakini is, and it's a female spirit, a goddess.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love whatever that is. So let's
I know.
explore more of that right off the bat. A female goddess and spirit. So let's go more into dakinis. Let's figure out what that is.
Yes, please. And it's great because number one, I was really excited to tell you about that because I knew that you'd be like, yes, love that. But this book, I don't know about your book, but my copy has like images of like, I think it's the different deities and the different like planes depicted in Tibetan art, masks, like things that are just history, and it's beautiful and it's really cool. So I'm putting two and two together, and dakinis are female spirits. Our female warriors, our goddesses, are a theme throughout the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I think that's really great because I didn't know that they were, as you had said earlier, one of the first practices to what was it? Allow women to reach nirvana, or how did you say that?
I think a record of a woman reaching enlightenment, like it's within their record of women are have at least the agency to be able to reach enlightenment, and at least
you
my
don't
understanding
see that
of
through a lot of like different religious or cultural backgrounds, and I think that's really beautiful.
No,
Very,
and
synchronicities.
Yeah, no, like I open up to whatever my art page was, and it talks about like the female bodhisattva Aloka, who I do know who is a thing that will be in here, and the female bodhisattva Gitka. I do know a little bit about like those things, and they are really, really pretty in their art descriptions.
Very. Oh my
no, it'd be
gosh.
interesting to see how that gets involved because I have absolutely no idea. Like I have no just bearing of Buddhist cosmetology. Like that doesn't.
Yeah.
I just know it's just the things that are there.
Yep.
So I think that my favorite line was when the Lord of Death approaches, first and foremost. That was gothic. That was
Number
badass.
one.
That was Johnny Cash moment right there. That was fucking cool.
It was.
Really enjoyed that. But I think my favorite line was actually this one though. So the most powerful one, like I said, I fell off the bat was when that Lord of Death approaches. But what I think really resonated with me was our impermanent environments will be destroyed by fire and water. The impermanent sentient beings within it will endure the severing of body and mind. And then it goes into impermanence, right? So it really talks about how it's I really like that it's both fire and water, right? So it's not one or the other, but it's the both, right? It's the connectiveness where it doesn't matter whether it's your hubris or your ego, it's still the same thing.
Yeah,
it's still all connected. It doesn't matter. There are 2 points of the same coin. It's that whole there is no duality, right? Then the non-duality, right? So fire and water are the same thing, right? Doesn't matter. So I like that instance of non-duality a lot in there.
I do too.
That's what yeah, non-duality is something that I really actually really important to my daily practice, actually, and like my spiritual practice at least. Um, and I really enjoy that, especially as like because it's non-duality is talked about in reference to impermanence right there, and I think that's why I connected it. And I just love the imagery of fire and water destroying a city. I think that's cool.
Oh my god, it makes me think of Atlantis, the Lost Empire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. The
it's
Disney
giving
one where,
Atlantis
yeah,
vibes.
it's 100% Atlantis vibes, right? Where it's just being like they had the blue things and it's just yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
and the lava just like pounding on it. Oh my
yeah,
god.
no,
Oh
100%. No, that's
yes.
100% accurate. So that was probably my favorites two immediate lines from it. Now I understand that you're not reading any immediate lines from it, but from that breakdown, what was kind of your overall vibe?
It's it's definitely like it's really interesting because yours is in one piece, right? And throughout my book, I find bits and pieces of it. So, like, as you're reading, I'm skimming and I'm like looking out for these words that you're saying, like these keywords. And so, like, right here, it's, oh, nobly born,
Yeah,
let not thy mind be distracted.
no,
And
that's interesting.
yeah, that was one thing that really stood out to me because I know that for one thing with me, I struggle constantly with overthinking on a
Uh-huh.
daily basis. And so just having those reminders to, yes, it's okay that your brain gets distracted, but, you know, also to just kind of come back to yourself and acknowledge, like, where's the source of this coming from? You know, what do I need to do that's a little bit better if it's like a negative feeling? I thought
Interesting.
that that was really, that stood out to me. And I
No,
thought
that
it was
is.
more synchronicities, right? Where like it jumps out to me on the page as you're
Yeah.
saying it too.
No,
So
that's super interesting. That interesting that like that you had this personal feeling of like how like to interpersonally related to like that overthinking, that scattering of it, like
yeah.
literally. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
Well, and I think it also really ties in because you and I have both talked about how like we genuinely love doing yoga
Hmm.
and how breath is important. Oh my god, who's yelling? Is it Gary
Gary.
or is it
Yeah, it's
Bean?
Gary yelling in
Oh,
the background.
Gary. Gare Bear. But we've talked about how breath is very important to the body, and that's something that yoga challenges you with, and it helps that distraction of the brain. And it's a very like
Yeah.
come to yourself moment, come to the universe moment. And I think that's just a very beautiful interconnectedness.
I think that you're very much related on it. I think that it's very cool to see that interconnected. Oh, again, always that interconnectedness of it all.
Yeah.
And of course, because my oh, I totally just had a brain fart. I had absolutely no idea where I was going with that sentence.
Oh
Oh,
no.
it's totally
That's the
gone.
worst.
Yeah, no,
Oh
it's totally
no.
no. I appreciate you sharing your wonderful insight. Thank you very much.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
Yes.
happy to a listener. I hope a traveler. I hope you had something a lot more. I'm sure she said something a lot more than my single brain mind has capable of comprehending.
We're gonna have to go back and like listen to it and
Oh,
be
I'm
like, oh yeah,
sure.
this is what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I'm sure.
um
It was something
so
revolutionary.
yes. You're the first prayer that you just read,
Yes.
do you know, is it signified in your book whether it is as the individual is dying or if it's after death, like immediately after death, or is it the first day of experiencing the peaceful deities? Does it specify that?
That's a great question. And it's so let me read the context page right in front of
Okay.
that one so we can actually understand that. In its original Tibetan that's not a good English. In this original Tibetan preliminary practice, I mean, in fairness, this is all translated. I should not be complaining at all right now. Practice is beautifully written in verse in the monasteries and lay houses of the practitioners of the cycle of this cycle of teachings. It is usually sung melodic in the early morning, so this would be sung in the early morning.
Oh.
before any other practice or activities begun. So this is like fucking wake up and go do shit.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Young monks would sing the opening verse of this poem as they go about their morning duties.
Oh my gosh.
When engaging in preliminary retreat, it is recommended that this meditation is done every day in 4 sessions. So, okay, cool. So you do it early morning till dawn, and then after sunrise, just until noon, and from afternoon until just before sunset, and from sunset until late afternoon. Which makes
That's
sense
so cool.
and also the keeping when I had my monastic experience. Those time frames
Right.
make sense to me. The practice essentially is the 4 common or 4 other. Okay, so yeah, the more of the 5 number things that I don't understand the importance of
That
in a
is so
Buddhist
cool.
mythology.
Right.
So just a bunch of number things from there on out. But yeah, so apparently this is just
Interesting.
like literally wake up, go, and I'm going to go sweep out the courtyard and start talking about death.
I love that. I also, this is, comparing our 2 differences, is I love that the first prayer that's in there is, this is how we start our day.
Yeah,
I think that's so cool.
Well, I
And
mean, that makes actually
I
a lot
don't,
of sense, I guess.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is where it all begins. This is the start of it all. I don't have that. And so I think it's really interesting that parts of the phrases from that first prayer, that first song, are scattered, it seems, throughout the process of these bardos. Which, do you know? Do you know what bardo means?
A bardo is literally like I did look it up and then I forgot. Now it's drawing complete
It's
blank.
literally a guiding
Yeah, it's
the recently deceased.
literally the path.
Yes,
The
like
guy or the
literally, it
guide.
is.
Like yeah.
Yes, the guide to help ease the grieving, and it's presumably to achieve a better rebirth.
Yes.
And so for me, I don't have that, right? I don't have like that first prayer, but throughout this text and the bardos, it has spatterings of that first prayer, that first song. And I think that's really cool that like their morning rituals also connected with the words that they say to the dead and the dying to help, achieve a better rebirth.
No, I really think it, and I think that some summed up really really well in at least the end part of what I read, right, in the Alasso Lasso precious jewel embodiment of compassion, right? So you get the benevolence
Oh,
part,
yes, that was
and
beautiful.
then since you the conqueror enjoy that, love that imagery, powerful right there.
Yes.
Are and it's like are endowed with a loving heart, so conqueror of love.
Oh,
um
beautiful. Conquer me with love.
yeah, exactly. Right, literally both, and all expressions of love, as long as it's love, hey,
Yes.
that's all we care about. um that's the bodhisattva thing right there, compassion and love, right? So
Yeah.
grant your blessings, so that we and the 6 classes, which I'm excited more, that's excited right there, the 6 classes and beings I want to learn about with you, that's that god shit.
Yes, the
um
6 lokas.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
maybe liberated right now from the suffering of cyclic existence. So yeah, no, that's a lovely way. I think that describes exactly what you wrote of. It's both that remembrance of like beauty and love, but then at the
Mm-hmm.
same time being like, now we're all still gonna die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be
Like
liberated now. Let's just do it now.
it's that bridge between love and loss.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. So you had brought up the 6 lokas, and I know it brings that up in that prayer as well. And during the first day, it's called the dawning of peaceful deities from the 1st to the 7th day, right? And so on this first day, part of the spoken words to the deceased is be not fond of the dull white light of the Devas. Be not attached, be not weak. If thou be attached to it, thou wilt wander into the abodes of the Devas and be drawn into the whirl of the 6 lokas. That is an interruption of obstruct thee on the path of liberation. Look not at it. Look at the bright blue light in the deep faith, but thy whole thought earnestly upon Vairochana, and repeat after me this prayer. And then it has a prayer underneath it. And I thought that was another interesting like tie-in throughout like the literal first day of the Bardo and peaceful deity process.
No, I think that's really interesting. I think that's one of the things I appreciate from your book right there that I don't have access to in mine is it doesn't have any of that, like what day of the week it is.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so we're gonna do this on a Monday.
Yeah, mine as I continue to go. It's literally it's the text. It's just the text itself, right? So it's literally just the prayers and all the different, and then it has
this is
a little
so
bit of commentary.
Cool. Oh my gosh, so, I love that. Yeah. Like we have these vastly different.
It has a little context before each. Like so, when it goes to like, so let me go in front of 2. So whatever, a prayer for union with the spiritual teacher, natural liberation without renunciation or renunciation of 3 positions. So whatever that's book 2 or chapter 2 or whatever how this works, and then it goes into a context page where this prayer is to the spiritual teacher, is generally recited immediately after the preliminary practice, which is the first, what I was just starting to read there. So this was, it's the next step in the ritual. So I don't have any context of like actually how to set up the times or what any of like that is. I just have the actual prayers and the actual like religious text. So I have basically what would be equivalent of like the Torah.
Yeah. And I've got like the step-by-step. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
To see how if it gets more into, I mean, at a certain point, I'm sure it'll get into like the actual, it's when we get into the cosmological stuff, right?
Yeah.
We'll get into more of the how-to guide. But yeah, right now it's just, I'm literally doing, these are, like you said, like the morning prayers.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's dope.
Oh,
so
interesting. I looked in my appendix and there is an invocation of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattva. Yeah. How do you say that? Bodhisattva?
Bodhi?
Sattva. Bodhisattva.
There you go.
Okay, Bodhisattva. Yeah, okay. O ye Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, abiding in the 10 directions, endowed with great compassion, endowed with foreknowledge, endowed with the divine eye, endowed with love, affording protection to sentient beings, condescend through the power of your great compassion to come hither. Condescend to accept these offerings actually laid out and mentally created. I think that's so beautiful.
I like the mentally created part a lot.
Me
I like that
too.
Part a lot. So so actually this will be fun to explore, and this is something I'm really excited about, to learn a lot more about the cosmological stuff. Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas are people who are decided to, or are beings who reached enlightenment but decided not to enter into nirvana and to not actually be fully enlightened until all people are enlightened. So they came back and are just coming back here, helping out people and loving through compassion or whatever, to until everything or everyone is enlightened, right? So I very much like the Bodhisattva stories and very much interested in a lot of their stuff. So I'm very excited to get into a lot of that stuff as we move farther along in the study here together.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so cool. I love that you said that the Bodhisattvas are through they're here because they want to like love and compassion, and they're like share their love and compassion. I think that's so beautiful because love and compassion are so important. And they've already reached that nirvana. They've already reached that level of pure grand existentialism, right? Existentialism. But they want to continue so everybody else could achieve that. And I think that's so cool.
It's something that like I think about a lot and like really resonates with me in a lot of different ways. And connecting with how like I think a lot about bodhisattvas actually, and like their stories about like, because it's like to reach enlightenment, right? To be able to walk into whatever that nirvana is and whatever my personal understanding of that is, right? And so like that ultimate thing, to be able to say no to that and to stay here and to continue through the cycle of suffering until every being is reached enlightenment is just
Wow. It's very powerful.
It is very powerful, right? It is extremely powerful to me, actually. And that's why I think about it. So it's why I think about it, right? A lot. I actually don't think about. I think about the bodhisattvas more than I do about the Buddha. If I'm being honest about my thoughts on Buddhism, I think more about the bodhisattvas and their stories of compassion and that dedication of just to helping humans and just trying to help. I love that. I love that concept of just trying to help so much so, and trying to love so much so you come through lives and lives and lives again to actually
just
connect
to love more and compassion, spread more compassion. All right, I have to go plug my laptop in, so you're coming with me.
No worries. I actually hear the landscapers outside, so that might be a sign for me to sign off here, actually. Here.
You know what? That is a valid, respectable indication.
Okay, well, I think today, real quick, while I get an opportunity, I'm going to abruptly end this real quick, listener. I apologize. Thank you for joining us in the first edition of our book club as we make our way through the Tibetan Book of the Dead, as we descend into the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But Sam, any last little final words before we get on out of here?
Happy birthday. Nick says happy birthday. I am so happy to have done this with you. I think, we're talking about the body. I'm not looking at the word, so I forgot how to pronounce it already. But I'm thinking about them and how you're a very compassionate and loving person. And I think that, I don't know, my heart is just, and my soul are just so happy right now. Thank you for inviting me on this journey with you.
Oh, it is truly a delight to have you here. It is truly a delight in the most gay way possible.
Absolutely. We're the only ones who can see each other, but both of us are smiling like idiots because we're small children.
Being with you makes me feel like a pretty princess.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that's the best accurate description of us. I also feel like a pretty princess.
It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So, but no, thank you so much for helping make this quite literally now at this point a lifelong goal of mine to start this process and actually helping me get to this joint. So thank you so much for also the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. Nice. I do believe that the only New Year's that actually matters is everyone's individual New Year's. So I do appreciate that a lot.
That's beautiful.
And I'm really excited to take these next steps in this journey recording with you. But my last message is, as always, Traveler, you are loved. You are not alone always, and you are enough. And God damn it, I hope you reach enlightenment, because one of us fucking needs to, because we cannot socially afford and economically afford one of us not to reach enlightenment at this point. That is, I'm banking on that. Come on, one of us has to do it. We're going, or we're going broke.
Someone do it.
Someone, please. We literally cannot afford not to at this point. So,
honestly,
I love everyone. Love you, Sam.
I love you.